Hello, Brad here, just to say we're super proud that the Friday 5pm podcast is sponsored by the Malt Miller, the UK's best home brew store.
We use the Malt Miller for all of our homebrew experiments, as well as tapping them up for advice and binging on their awesome YouTube channel all the time.
That's why whenever we release a homebrew video, we put a recipe kit live on the Malt Miller, so you can brew with the exact same amazing ingredients that we did. The same ingredients used by pro brewers.
So alongside the Malt Miller's nitro-flushed hops, cold-stored yeast and milled-to-order malts, you can pick up recipe kits for our 5 Points Best Bitter, Russian River West Coast IPA, and now the fastest beer in the world, a hazy session IPA that goes from grain to glass in less than 48 hours.
Sign up to their newsletter at tinyurl.com/Malt Miller to get 5% off your first order. With the Malt Miller's amazing customer service and Johnny's 48-hour recipe, you could order the ingredients on a Monday and be drinking the beer by the weekend.
Speaking of which, it's Friday.
It's 5pm.
So enjoy this week's Friday 5pm podcast. Good afternoon, Beer Geeks. Happy Friday. I hope you've got a beer in the glass. I don't have a beer in the glass, but I do have some wort in there.
In a glass? Oh, it is in a glass, I suppose, isn't it? And in a sort of kettle and everything. Nice.
It's everywhere, as most of my brew days go. There's wort absolutely everywhere, but there is in the glass because I'm playing out with a new gadget we've got, an Easy Dens, which was very kindly given to us by Anton Parr, which measures very accurately the gravity, which really could have done with during the pastry stout episodes, but we've got it for today's brew, which is a double New England IPA in collaboration with Cloudwater.
Boom. Boom. That's all I've got to say. Boom.
So yeah, I'm brewing that today, and we'll be releasing that video in a couple of weeks. And I'm also brewing, literally right now, it's on the boil, it's doing a 90-minute boil right now, a secret beer, which we've been teasing about of late with the big project that I'm not quite sure when we're going to announce it, but it's very exciting, and we will at some point. That beer is using all English hops, very excitingly, but sort of a lot of the modern ones, which I've got next to me. I need to weigh them out. And yeah, that's boiling away quite happily. So it's a double brew day for me. Big
day, Johnny. I just wanted to say congratulations to you as well, because you've won another bloody award. As if you didn't have enough awards already, didn't you?
I know the shelf is starting to groan.
Oh, describe what this award looks like before you tell us what it is.
So this is the Guild of Food Writers Award.
No. I wanted you to describe what it looked like before you what does the object look like before you told us what it is.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
You've told us
it's a fountain pen.
Yes.
Where like the little the gap that goes up the middle of a fountain pen nib is a spoon.
Oh, I know that one. It's a good one. That is a good one.
It is a pretty good logo, and the trophy itself is easily hefty enough to kill a person.
Wow. So would you...
It's a hefty thing.
If you had to choose one of your trophies in a fight to the death, which one would you choose?
Oh, in a fight to the death, it's 100% the Guild of Food Writers. The Fortnum & Mason one is a weird-looking thing, but a very useful wine cooler. And yeah, so I could have quite the night, because all the tankards from the Guild of Beer Writers, you drink from those, you keep the beer cold in your wine cooler, and when you've had enough to turn a bit fighty, you bring out the Guild of Food Writers one.
Slug it out with a weapon of choice. Nice.
Actually, I tell you what, the Guild of Food Writers, because I'm a lover, not a fighter, the Guild of Food Writers would make a pretty baller bottle opener.
Oh yeah, you reckon you could jam it in there somehow? Mamma jammer.
I reckon I could make that work, yeah.
Nice.
So there we go. I've got everything you could need in trophy form.
Wow.
Although perhaps I should say my favourite trophy is, of course, our YouTube silver play button. Ooh, I'm being beeped at. I need to add some hops. Give me 10 seconds, Bradley.
Here we go. This is like ASMR now. You get the dulcet tones of my voice as Johnny is tending the brew.
I've just thrown in 50 grams of East Kent Golding.
Nice.
That's terrible ASMR work.
Nice.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Yes. So some more 50 grams of that just went in on top of 50 other grams that also went in, and then there's going to be Harlequin, Olicana, and Jester going. I mean, I'm basically telling the recipe. It's getting less and less secret as we go along, so I should stop doing that. Bradley, have you been up to anything beery this week? I was drinking champagne at the ceremony, which was very off-brand.
Well, we had some comments about beers with champagne use to them in this week's video, but we'll get to that. I went camping at the end of last week, just after the podcast. I drove. So I sold my car, and I bought a little, like a sort of van type thing, a budget van from many years ago, called a Kangoo, for like under £2,000, Johnny. It's a bargain. And then I've got a little campery conversion thing in the back of it. So it was the first time I've used it in earnest to stay in. And I actually went to a campsite called House Dean Campsite, which is approximately 2 miles away from the awesome Beak Brewery just outside of Lewis. And it was honestly the most sublimely beautiful, well-appointed, bougie campsite I've ever been to. They had a sort of really, really beautiful shower blocks. They had a sort of kitchen, and a sort of alfresco kitchen with a sort of clear glass-fronted refrigerator where you could put all your nice things. They had a shop that sold like Tony's Chocolonely chocolate, and that you could buy like fresh, warm croissants in the morning. It's very, very.
That is bougie. Initially, I was like, this just sounds like a campsite, but with a glass fridge. But now we're actually talking warm croissants,
mate. It was brilliant. And we went to Beak Brewery, of course. And because I was driving, I just had some Lula. Lula? Yeah, Lula. That's how you say it, I believe.
The table beer, yeah.
Yeah, the table beer, which was tasting phenomenal. Really, really amazing. And I happened to bump into Josh from Patreon and Seb, who was at Wildcard Brewery, but has now this week just moved to Howling Hops Brewery. So congratulations on the new job, Seb.
Congratulations, Seb, yeah.
Yeah, so I saw those boys and I hung out with them for a bit in the evening, and then I caught up with them in Brighton the next day for a little bit as well, which was super nice. And it was just wonderful, like being by the coast, camping in my car. I was like living a sort of dream. It was brilliant. There was a roaring, spectacular thunderstorm the second night, which I was staying with my oldest friend that I've known since I was 4 or 5. His girlfriend and their dog were in a light hiking tent, so like a very lightweight tent, and it was a crazy thunderstorm with just crazy amounts of rain. I have bought an old van, so I was sort of lying there watching the little TV that I've sort of jerry-rigged up in there, and I could feel dripping on my arm. So I sort of turned my little phone light on, and I could see I had water coming in through the door because one of the rubber seals around the door needs replacing. So I was like, damn, if we're getting wet, what's going on in the little tent out there? But I spoke to him the next morning. He said it was very exciting, and they were totally dry. So I thought, there you go. They were dry in their bloody little tent that looked like it was made out of a plastic bag, and I got my arm wet in my vehicle, Johnny. But I also took a cooler that I'm going to be reviewing. Finally, I got sort of sent it last summer, but we didn't get to make our lowbrow camping video. But it's this awesome roto-molded cooler by a brand called Utoka, which are kind of like akin to Yeti, like a sort of high-end cooler. Quite expensive, but can I reveal how many days the ice and the beers stayed cold for? Or do you think I should leave that for a lowbrow?
Of course, I don't think you could tell this story and not tell them how long it stayed cool, given that it was a cooler.
Okay, so Friday, I filled it up Friday morning, and I had it in my bathroom with half full of ice, and I believe around 20 cans of beer and bottles of beer, all sorts of different things, which were pretty cool as well. So that was Friday morning, like sort of mid-morning. Then we were in a heat wave, so it was in the car all day. We drove there, and then it was in a warm tent for the rest of the weekend. On Monday afternoon, I opened it up again because it was just sat in my kitchen, and mate, I still had ice in it. It was only a little bit of ice, but all of the beers were like crispy cold. So that was like
that is
4
crazy.
solid days. This thing's not electric; it's purely just ice in there. It's got incredible heat retention, so it's like it's staying the same temperature box. So whatever you put in it, if it's hot, if it's cold, it will keep it like the same temperature. Amazing piece of kit.
You'd be a pretty weird person to put something really hot in there, though, wouldn't you? I mean,
yes.
You're not going to bring, I don't know, maybe people do want a vat of soup, like 40 litres of soup, but
Well, I
it
think
seems unlikely.
It's more of a like, if you're a delivery driver and you need to, have like gourmet food or just any sort of food, you could stick it in
Right, I see.
a cool
That
box
makes
and
more
it
sense.
keeps it warm. It's just a keeping same temperature device.
Maybe you could have a sideline in delivering blood.
Blood, yeah.
Now
just
that
like
you've got
tepid blood.
Exactly.
But they keep it cold though. They keep it cold, don't they?
I don't actually know what temperature blood is transported, but I know they have cool boxes.
They got to keep it cool, right? Otherwise, it would spoil. I'm sure it's ice cold blood. I'll ask my vampire friends when I get off my chat. I'll go into my vampire Discord and see what they've got to say for it. I'm not a member of a vampire Discord, by the way. Although I'm sure there are many. I'm sure there are many vampire Discords thinking about it. Talking of bloodsuckers, what about every brewery ever, Johnny, that calls a beer that clearly isn't an IPA an IPA just because they want to make money? What do you think about that?
That was as tortured as a vampire attack. So this week's video was what even is IPA, which was a response to the fact that we don't really know anymore. It seems to have become a marketing term or shorthand for this is going to be hoppy, but everything else could be anything. Yeah. So we thought we'd take the people that do this to task to see if any of these should be called IPA. And I'm not sure we really came up with a conclusion, because your conclusion was they should be called IPA, but they shouldn't be called IPA.
Pretty much.
Which, before you think I'm mocking you, I actually agree with.
Yeah. I think
all we did was sort of think that maybe black IPA probably shouldn't be called IPA, because the flavors, particularly of most, lots of people say, black IPA shouldn't really know that it's a black IPA. Well, then what's the point of it being a black IPA? So it should taste different. So therefore, is it an IPA when it's heavily roasted? And I don't know. I don't want to get back into it too much. It was 20 minutes of navel gazing already, wasn't it?
But also, Johnny, it's black, so it's not. How could it be called a pale ale? It's black.
Yeah, black pale ale. Yeah, I mean, there's always that argument as well.
Oxymoron, surely. It's like the opposite of what it says it is.
Should be an IBA.
Yeah. IBA. There we go.
Yeah.
We've made a new one. We've done it. We've done it, Johnny. We've fixed a new one.
Fixed it.
We fixed it. Oh,
yeah. So what it really was in terms of like what we want people to take away from the video is A, to think a bit critically about beer names and think about what their point is, and B, to teach people who didn't know all these different styles, what they might taste like, because genuinely people do pick them up, and there are a couple of people in the comments that said this, say they've picked up a beer thinking it was an IPA, and then it's been sour, or it's been red, or it's been black, or it's been loaded with lactose and fruit like milkshake IPAs, to which I should also apologise. We didn't include milkshake IPAs, cold IPAs, brute IPAs. On purpose, we didn't include English IPAs because I think that they're so far removed from what modern IPA is that we thought that was a whole different conversation. So we do have a video coming out eventually about like historical and English IPAs, but we put that separately. So yeah, sorry if you were hoping to find out what a milkshake IPA is. We kind of discussed it in the track video, but then we didn't drink a milkshake. Well, they don't call it a milkshake IPA.
You just had a Freudian slip then, Johnny. You called it a milkshake IPA.
A milkshake?
Yeah, you started saying milkshake instead of milkshake.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I do think that it's the worst style on earth. So, yeah, what did you find in the comments that was worthy of reading out? Much hate or all joy?
I mean, there was definitely a dude, which I won't go into, that was picking apart what he thought an original IPA was, and that none.
Oh, don't worry, I'm going to get to Mark Hamstra later.
Oh, I thought you might. Yeah, I was enjoying you sort of just giving a bit of tit for tat. But yeah, I'm just gonna. My comment was Andrew B, who just said, "I love Brad Sunbury. These aren't IPAs, but you should call them that anyway." It's so dishonest to the internet nerdism, but so honest to where the industry really is. And then that was kind of backed up by other people saying they agreed. I think it's a sad thing to admit that that's why these people are doing it, but it's the truth, because they know they stick the IPA badge on the front of a beer, it's going to sell. So I like that people agreed with that, but also Matt Somner said lol to the Brute IPA smackdown. I think the Brief Brute craze was my first craft beer. What the fuck? And then we had Corbin Legrand, great name, who said Brute IPA, which no one makes anymore because they suck. That was a quote by you. And he says, I took offense to that. And then Ricardo said, I like Brute IPA. And he said Sierra Nevada had a great example of what a Brute IPA was supposed to be, but then again, they can do no wrong. Pretty much. I think I don't like Brute IPAs either, and you certainly don't. I
mean, it's not that I dislike Brute IPA.
I haven't had a good one.
The idea of a Brute IPA, which is an exceptionally dry, hop-forward beer, pale ale, and essentially a very dry IPA, that is absolutely fine. And there are lots of examples of those that aren't called Brute IPAs. They're just very dry IPAs. Like in the UK, St Austell Big Job uses that enzyme that they were using, amyloglucosidase, and that dries it right out because it breaks down extra sugars that the yeast then ferments. And that's great. There are lots of delicious, extremely dry IPAs. What I disliked is, A, the branding of that as something different when it had already existed for a very long time. But that's quite common in beer. IPA, for a start, was just a strong, overly hopped pale ale that was sent to India and then became known as pale ale as prepared for India, and then just India Pale Ale. So that has precedent, but that annoyed me a little bit. But finally, it was the fact that lots of people misunderstood it. They were like, oh, it's like wine IPA, and started throwing grape must in, or Nelson Sauvin hops and stuff like that. That actually, Nelson Sauvin, I wouldn't really put that in a very, very dry IPA. I don't think that quite works as a recipe. So it was all the playing around that annoyed me. Just a very dry IPA I'm very into. Very into it. And that's almost what a cold IPA is as well. It's a lagered, very dry, almost zero malt character IPA.
Could we call it a dripper, like a dry IPA?
Dripper. I think that's even more confusing than Brute, but I enjoy the wordplay.
Dripper, nice. I've got one more sort of silly question. Not a question, sorry, a comment from Mr. Rougelot, who always comes out with some gold. He says, after angering the industrial beer fanatics by poorly rating their poison of choice, emphasis on poison, not that long ago, you now taunt the craft aficionados by questioning the essence of the crown jewel of craft beer. What's the next video, guys? 10 reasons why football is not a sport. Or maybe I told the Hells Angels their bikes are absolute overpriced antiques. Watch their reaction. Very good, very good.
I'd watch both those videos, and I reckon Brad, you'd make the first one, probably not the second one. I bet you like Harleys.
I don't understand football. Yeah, although one of my friends from university is opening up a sports bar in London called Valderrama's, which is named after apparently the goalkeeper that did the scorpion kick. Was he called Valderrama? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I've got no idea. My football knowledge doesn't go that deep.
Oh, right. It's a dude with a massive barnet. He's got huge, crazy, I think he's South American 90s football player or something. He's got huge afro, and he did this mad kick, the ball's coming at him, and he flopped on the floor like a fish, and then whacked his legs up behind him to kick the ball out.
Yeah, I know the kick, like a scorpion sting, yeah.
Yeah, I can vaguely remember that sort of thing on something for some reason. But yeah, sports bar. I hate footy balls. Don't like it. Rubbish. Next question.
Yes, well, so the comments that I picked out, the first one I really enjoyed was from Rob Collingridge, who said, non-beer drinkers I know totally equate craft beer and IPA to mean the same thing. So it's interesting to see this video and your last back-to-back, which was the plan. Thank you for noticing our clever production schedule there, Rob. And then Nolan McIntyre says, yes, my wife, bless her soul, often tells her friends, oh, my husband likes IPA beers. And I wait until we get home before I remind her that not all craft beer is IPA, which is the kind of thing where I'd love to go like, oh, I bet you're fun, Nolan, but it's exactly the kind of thing that I'd do.
It's I guess for a lot of people, like it's almost interchangeable, right? They're like
100%.
They're like, oh yeah, my partner like enjoys, like they mean say craft beers, or they mean say artisan beers, as we've come to sort of call them potentially. But they say my partner likes IPA beers because they don't really know what it means.
Yeah, I mean, it's a symptom of the fact that IPA is kind of the flagship style of craft beer, but I also think that it's particularly used by critics of the craft beer movement. As most of the criticisms of craft beer is like, oh, I don't like that floral, fruity rubbish, which is essentially IPA. And I think it's easy to. It's a sad thing to say, but it's easy to take a dig at something that people are really, really passionate about. And I think that's a bit of a shame. But it definitely is more open to critique than, say, really caring about a beautiful German or Czech style lager. It's kind of hard to have a dig at somebody for that. Whereas for something that's 7% made in a industrial estate and using absurd quantities of extremely expensive things, all of those are things that you can pick apart and have a laugh at. But yeah, so I enjoyed that comment from Rob, because I think he's definitely right that craft beer and IPA are seen as the same thing outside, and a lot of what we do is to try and change that by representing as many different styles as we can in the homebrewing and the episodes, because craft beer is definitely about more than IPA, and increasingly, IPA is less and less craft. So many macro breweries are making it, so many regional breweries are making it, so many small brewers are only focusing on it, but getting extremely big by doing so. So it's almost as if, I was about to use a horrible phrase of like real craft, but I think there's a lot to be said for craft brewers focusing on other styles as much as anything. And so we move on to Mark Hamstra, who I don't know whether he's in the beer industry or whether he's a beer historian or whether he's just read some books and basically remembered them.
He's the beer ghost of beers past.
Right, okay. You think I'm arguing with a spirit?
Yeah. He's like a Phileas Fogg character from the Victorian era, from his sort of musings, I reckon.
Well, I mean, he's a very interesting guy, to be fair. All the replies that I've had to him, basically, I think we slightly irked him by when we were drinking the red IPA, me saying that this would have been the colour of the original IPAs. I immediately backtracked, because when I looked at it properly, I was like, no, that's far too dark. Yes. But what I was trying to say is that pale beers back then were not as pale beers right now by a long shot. Yeah. And that also, if you had something in cask for several months, the casks would not have been perfectly sealed. There would have been micro-oxidation or full-on oxidation, and that would have turned the beers a bit more amber if they were aged for a long time. So that was the point I was trying to make. Mark Hamstra took exception to that. I won't read all of his comments. He's made several comments to different people down below, but running through the history, mostly the history as was written in Mitch Steele's book, IPA, which definitely has some flaws, and definitely because it was published a decade ago, there's been more research done and more things unearthed since. But essentially, if you want to learn about the history of IPA, Mark Hamstra has put some really great, much more in-depth stuff in there that we'd save for our historical IPA video. So it's worth going and tracking down those comments. There's this chat about hop crew, Brettanomyces, about what beers were supposed to look like back then. IPAs were supposed to look like that. Boil times, boil intensities. Oh my God, there's everything in there. And I pick up on some of his points and push back, but most of it is quality knowledge from Mark Hamstra. So go have a look if you want to learn a lot more about it. And we will be doing a video. We'll be shooting a little bit of it in a couple of weeks, actually, as we work on a different project. So that video is coming, and you will learn everything about the origins of IPA and the recipes and all of that pretty soon on the Craft Beer channel. Nice. Right, what have we got left to talk about? We've got a question from our Patreon forum.
Before that, Johnny, we're fast approaching our 100th episode, right? What are we going to do?
Yes, we are. Let's dig into that. Well, so we've been thinking about this. So I think this is episode 95 we're on now, and we will be hitting 100 in mid-July. That's 100 Friday, 5 p.m, not including the bubble episodes. So we thought we should do something special for it. So currently our plan is to host a live show, a live drink-along show, which we will also record and then publish that as the 100th episode. So our plan is, if you put it in the diary, pencil it in your diary, it's not confirmed yet, but probably Thursday the 28th of July will be the recording day of the podcast, and then it will go live the next day if you can't make it. We'll put a box live full of tasty beers that we can drink while we're recording it. We'll probably do maybe an hour recording of the actual show, and then we'll have an hour sort of after party maybe while we finish the beers and don't have to be quite as direct, fascinating, and scheduled as we would be during the first hour of the podcast. So, yeah, put that in the diary. Let us know. We're thinking of getting some guests on, so let us know what kind of guests you'd love to see. It could be former Bubble people. It could be people we've talked about in the Friday 5pm podcast. Think big, guys. If we've mentioned a celebrity you'd love to hear us speak to, we'll approach them, and we'll try and get this together and make a really special 100th episode, because although Friday 5pm makes very little money, although huge thanks to our sponsors, Malt Miller, who are keeping it going and of course supplying us with loads of homebrew equipment and ingredients, it's become, I think, a really important thing of what we do, and a great way for us to expand on all the videos when, you know, on YouTube you have to be a bit briefer.
Yeah. I mean, this is unedited gold, right? Like, you're getting us how we are. This is us as human beings. Whereas you have to cut out a lot of my waffle chat, me particularly, when we're recording videos. But I think our personalities, I think, come out a lot in this, and I think it's great. For me, I just enjoy recording this and just catching up with you, buddy, on a Friday. Just you know, kind of going over the week that's been and everything. And I think it's become a bit of a thing for a lot of people as well, which is lovely to sort of realize.
It's so nice when we meet people out and about, and you know, we get a lot of people say we love the channel, but it's been really nice to have some people going like, I love the Friday 5pm podcast, it's how I start every weekend now. And you know what's really lovely about that is it's exactly how we do. I mean, obviously we record it slightly earlier in the day, but often I've cracked open a beer. Often when I'm editing it, I'll crack open a beer. That's probably the most common situation because it's the last thing I'll edit before it goes live on a Friday. So it's a really big part of Craft Beer Channel's sort of slightly chaotic week, really.
And
so it's going to be really lovely to celebrate that.
Definitely. So yeah, it'd be great to get some of our... imagine if we get like live questions coming in. Can we do that? Can we let people join the video for a second just to ask a question and pick them out?
We could actually get people on there if they're happy to, or if they don't want to put it in the comments. Yeah,
man,
we could bring people
like
on.
Filmbusters Ben, or we got Matt Sumner, or you know, these sort of like peoples that are big on, or Josh, or these other people that are on the Patreon that are kind of quite vocal. If we actually got to see their faces as a community, that'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, we'll have a think about how we can make that work for sure. And if you've got any ideas about how we could run that, or like I said, anybody that you might want to be on there, then do let us know. And you can let us know in the Patreon forum, which you can join for $2 a month, or £2, I think it is. It's $2 or £2, and then you get access to our amazing forum full of hundreds of big each, chatting away every day and chatting away with us. And you get obviously direct access to us, and you can even suggest videos that we'll make. We've taken a few off of the Patreon forum now. Speaking of the Patreon forum, we have a question this week, and it comes from Preston.
Yes.
And he asked this on the forum, and I asked his permission if we can make this the question for Friday 5pm, and he was up for that. It's slightly long, so as I read it, I'm going to try and edit it down into a concise, excellent question. Not that it wasn't an excellent question before, but it was not concise. So Preston asks, I've got a question I'd like to discuss at some point, Johnny. When we go out for a beer, what should we expect from the one serving us? I know that not everyone is as passionate about beer as most of the people on this forum are, but what should we expect? Where's the line? I sometimes go to that earlier mentioned place. I've edited out the place, and they don't even know what guest cans they've got in the fridges, even if I tell them it's written on the board. So that is shocking customer service if you don't know the actual products that you're selling. I think that's the bare minimum, that staff should know what they have for sale. And I would also say that the absolute bare minimum, in a pub situation at the very least, is that they've tried most of what's on tap so that they can give you a detailed description. Obviously, that falls down. You can't go into a bottle shop with 700 beers and expect them to have tried everything. That's just not reasonable. But hopefully, they'll know the brewery and they'll be able to tell you kind of what to expect. But yeah, I mean, for me, the line is the person behind the bar should know more about that beer than you, so that they can educate you about it.
This is this kind of concept of not giving a fuck is bringing me back to drinking in the early 2000s in various bars in London and around the world and stuff. And it used to be, I feel like it used to be an active thing where you went somewhere cool, like cool, inverted commas, and the staff would actively either ignore you or like just be like disinterested in what you wanted to drink. That now I'm talking, that's in the past. I think service now has become, people are passionate. They're in this industry and they're killing it in general. Like people, if you go to a great bar, you're usually going to get great bar staff that are, amazing, knowledgeable, super enthusiastic, brilliant. I mean, I couldn't do it. I'd get real cheesed off with people, I think, but it's always amazing, isn't it, when you talk to someone nice that just makes your beer experience even better because you're tasting it, but you're also you've already been like hyped up by the person that served you it. I don't think it gets much better than that. So that's my dream, that you kind of get hyped up before you even try the beer, that you're going to be excited to drink it.
The bare minimum is the atmosphere that they create around the beer you're about to drink.
That'd be amazing. I don't know if that's the bare minimum, but I feel like the job of a good or a great server is to create the atmosphere and to make you excited about what you're going to drink. Because let's face it, these beers are like £6 a pint. It's a lot of money. So I want to be...
Yeah, absolutely, which leads me to the other thing, which is that they should know how to pour the pint correctly, particularly with a lot of cask scales and, say like a Czech lager should be poured with plenty of head and stuff like that. So that should come into that knowledge as well. They should know plenty about the beer and plenty about how to serve it right, which isn't always the case. And I think a really important point to make would be that, like you said, being a bar person is incredibly tough, incredibly long hours on your feet, a lot of cleaning, a lot of dealing with drunken customers, and on top of that you have to have a lot of knowledge about what you're serving. And I think that a lot of that should fall on the people to actually train the staff and to pay them right, because the biggest issue with not having trained staff is the staff turnover. Why would you stay in a job if you're working incredibly hard and being underpaid? So in some ways my answer to the question would be the bare minimum would be that they are paid for the job that they do, which is very much not the case in hospitality right now, particularly in the UK, where there's a real shortage of workers because of Brexit, because of coronavirus, because of everything that's been going on. There's a real crisis, and so hopefully bar staff are using that to their advantage and getting the pay that they deserve. But I think that if we can reduce the incredible turnover of staff in bars, then we can actually people can invest time and money and energy in educating them. And that certainly should be the case in a more premium craft beer bar.
I honestly think, like, if you've got the right person that's crafting that experience, it makes the whole, it adds so much value to your business if you are the owner of the business or whatever. Like, I'm thinking of particular people that I've met along the way that I just think are so good at what they do. I don't know if I should name check someone or whether that's a bit like... Is that
if they're good at it, do it.
Yeah, well, Moritz Borg, for instance, is incredible.
Yeah.
I think of what he does. He's fucking phenomenal, that guy.
Runs the Colonel Tap and runs it with aplomb.
He's amazing. And wherever he's worked, I've always thought he's such an awesome dude. He's so pumped about everything that he's passionate about. And that is infectious, that passion, that love. It's exciting. And it creates a vibe, a mood, an atmosphere of a place, and that's what it's about at the end of the day for me. It's all about that, and the juice as well, obviously.
Yeah, I will end this discussion by talking about. I don't know whether you were there, Brad, but it was back when we were working at Jamie Oliver's, and we went to the Star, which was like a pub/bar across the road that I always hated.
Yeah.
And they used to have Sierra Nevada in the fridge.
Yes.
And it was what I always drank when I went in there, because otherwise it was macro lagers. And one time they served it to me with a lime in the top.
Oh shit! I do remember that. It tasted great, Johnny. What are you talking about?
It wasn't great. It really doesn't work with that beer. Initially, I was like, you know what? You've done it now. I'm going to try. Oh my God, we've ruined Sierra Nevada.
Here's your
so
Mexican
the bare
beer,
minimum
sir.
is not putting a lime in in an American pale. So yeah, that's all we've got time for this week. Please do let us know what you want to do on the 28th, and we'll confirm that date as soon as we can and get a Taste Along box live for that particular evening. If you've got a question you want to send us, you can either join the Patreon forum or just email us, craftbeerboys@gmail.com. We prefer a recorded question so we can play it, but absolutely fine if that's not something you want to do. Just send us it, just write it out. What else have we got to talk about? We don't know what next week's video is because we're working on a huge project, so everything is happening super quick. But we have 2 videos we could do, and we'll decide that nearer the time. Otherwise, I guess we'll see you next Friday for another Waffly Friday 5 p.m. episode number 96. The Bubble and Friday 5 p.m. podcasts are brought to you by the nerds behind YouTube's Craft Beer channel. You can watch over 400 mini documentaries at youtube.com/the Craft Beer channel. And if you love what we do, support us via Patreon and get access to merchandise and our amazing Discord forum, a positive and welcoming space for everyone who loves beer, food, and homebrewing. Love and beer.